to another exciting episode of Level Up and Live, your go-to podcast for all things growth, challenge, living life to the fullest, and the journey of becoming the best version of yourself. I'm your host, Sean Myers, joined by my co-host, Ewan Heinemeyer. And today, we're thrilled to embark on another journey of self-discovery and achievement with you. Today, we're diving into the heart-pounding world of competition as we dissect our recent adventure at the Hyrox race. Ewan and I strapped on our game faces, laced up our shoes, and took on the challenge of a lifetime at the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston, Texas. We set our sights on a 60-minute goal, and while we fell short by just 2 minutes, our journey was nothing short of extraordinary. We embraced the grind, pushed our limits, and learned valuable lessons along the way. So buckle up, because we're about to unpack all the sweat, tears, and triumphs of our Hyrox experience. Before we dive in, a quick reminder to all our incredible listeners out there. If you're enjoying the Level Up and Live podcast and want to join us on this exhilarating journey of growth, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And hey, if you're feeling extra generous, leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback fuels our fire and helps our impact even more lives. Oh, and don't forget to share this episode with a friend who could use a little extra motivation today. Together, let's spread the inspiration far and wide.
Today we're discussing Sean and Ewan's breakdown of Hyrox men's doubles in Houston and the journey that took us from 4 weeks out all the way to race day. And before you check out, you might not be someone that works out, or might not even know what Hyrox is. You will by the time this episode is over. But we were just discussing the points that we're going to be making. You could take out the word Hyrox, take out the word fitness, and implement everything we're going to be talking about into succeeding in life in any area, whether it be your diet, whether it be your relationships, whether it be especially your business. I mean, you literally, so we take notes and we kind of list them out of what we think will be really impactful for you to listen to, that could help you in your day-to-days. And we literally looked down and said, man, if you took the word Hyrox and dissect Hyrox out and put in your business, you wouldn't know the difference, because what it takes to win at anything, you have to apply the same principles. Winning is a universal construct, and you have to do the same things to win in almost all areas. So today we're going to break down our Hyrox deal, and feel free to implement whatever is you're dealing in your life right now, and how you could implement these strategies to succeed there. So would you say that's accurate, Sean?
Yeah, 100%. And so for starters, I would be curious, like when we set the goal. So I came to you and I said, hey, we're going to do 60 minutes at Hyrox. And I'm curious on when I said 60 minutes, what were your expectations on that? Because when you set a goal, right, typically that's step one. You want it to be a realistic goal, right? It's like if you've never ran before and you set a marathon from a month from now, that's not a realistic goal. So with me doing Hyrox before and saying 60 minutes, what was going through your mind?
From what I knew, which was little, because I had watched you and Corey run a year ago, and so I knew the level of intensity that you guys did it in, and I wasn't quite sure at the time. I thought you guys had done it in sub 60, and I was like, dang, I know Corey is mega fit, and I know you're elite level fit, so I'm like, I know I just ran a marathon and I'm fit there, but I know compromise running from my CrossFit days, and so I'm like, we got 4 weeks to prepare. I was like, okay, all I thought was, I want to do this with you, and I will give it everything I've got. And that's all I could give. And so I also relied on you, trusted you to know that was 60 like realistic. Because I mean, if it was 50 minutes, that would have been, we're laughing about that because we know what that would be. We'd be like, no way. But 60, well, maybe 50 is 60 is my kind of 50. If I was to think about it, I'm like, dang, that's high. Like that's fast. But I trusted you, and that we would be real close to it.
So one of the things I've always done the past decade, every area of my life, right? If I set a goal, it would be a big goal for me. And so I wouldn't necessarily have the tactics or the strategies or the task that I needed to do to get there. I would just set the goal. So one of the things I've learned about you is, like for the Hyrox, I kind of knew an idea that 60 minutes was doable, right?
Yeah.
But as far as breaking down the exercises, as far as breaking down the pace, the splits, the run, that's typically above my pay grade. So one of the things that I've always considered myself is, hey, I know a little about a lot, right? And if we set this goal, we may not hit this goal, but one thing I'm going to learn is that I'm going to fail forward. If I don't hit this goal, if I don't know the answer, I'm going to reach out to somebody that will help me get to that goal. And that is exactly where we are today, right? So it was a realistic goal in my mind because we had been at 62, 63 minutes with me and Corey. So when I set this 60 minutes, I knew it was attainable, but was attainable because you just started this training 4 weeks ago. But I was like, well, Ewan is very good at strategizing. Ewan is very good at breaking things down. So reflecting back and us hitting the 62 minutes and 47 seconds, right, which is an all-time personal record, which I'm
It's
super
crazy.
happy about.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have no frame of reference because it's my first one, so I know it's quick considering you and Corey's time, because you said it was faster than that. So I'm like, wow, like that's a lot. And I will say this: Sean did 70% of the muscle work, and I relied on my running capacity to be able to keep up. So that was part of the strategy, though. We knew that going into it. Man, which we could get a lot of that was ego. That was probably one of the hardest parts. Is I don't want my brother to have to carry me,
Mm.
um, because that's not in my personality type. Like I want to do my fair share, 50-50, because that's fair. If anything, I want to be the one taking on more so that there's no question of me not pulling my weight. But in this, I knew it wasn't, if we wanted that time, if we were going to get anywhere close, there just wasn't enough time for me to get physically prepared for that. I was ready to run marathon, but 4 weeks to run a Hyrox and do 50-50 was not there. So I really had to check myself and be like, I have to if we're going to win, I'm going to have to check my ego.
Yeah.
Right. And
What,
which was a whole other conversation. I mean, it was very
what would
difficult.
you? I'm curious, Ewan. What would you tell somebody that one struggles with setting goals?
Mm.
If somebody struggles setting goals, right? Or the flip side of that, somebody that's good at setting goals, but they don't know what actions to take or the time frame to take it in. So, like for instance, if you didn't have me saying, "Hey, we can do this in 60 minutes," if you forward think backwards plan, what would you have done differently if you didn't have me?
If it was me on my own and I found Hyrox, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. I would I would know what my running pace. Let's just say I knew what my running pace was, which I do from the marathon. And if I was to try and set it, first off, I wouldn't set the 60-minute goal, especially if it was solo, because that would be way beyond it. So I would research. I would go to YouTube, Google what would be a good time for someone's first Hyrox race, and then I would figure out who said that, and then I would compare where they were at compared to where I'm at. This is how my mind works, and I would be like, okay, that guy did it in 75 minutes, and he's saying he can run like this and push these weights, and these are his maxes and fastest sprints. I'm pretty good gauge of I could keep up with that, or no, that's way too much, or no, I could do better than that. And so that would be my first gauge. I would then prepare my training routine around that, and I'd start. I'd probably take 4 to 8 weeks and break down the actual race day into pieces and see how I respond as I increase weight, as I increase speed. And then at some point, like we did, I would do a mock, see where I was overall. Was I even close to the time frame that I had set that goal for? Once I know that, I'd take another 4 to 8 weeks and work towards shaving off whatever time I needed to shave off. So
So
that's
you
what
would,
I would
what I'm
do.
hearing you say is that you would set a time. So you would do your research, look at your
Yes.
resources,
Yep.
set that time at 75, 80 minutes. Is that correct? Like you would set a time, make it publicly known
Yep.
internally,
Yep.
and you would set that realistic goal. Now, okay, cool. Now you know what to do. Now you know you've broken it down. You forward think, backwards plan. Now, did you face any challenges in that 4 week training block?
Man, here's what's interesting, man. For me, I I want to get there comfortable. I want to get there to where I fully earned it, and I didn't have to push crazy hard, but I arrived exactly where I wanted to. But when we were doing it, I knew I was going to have to push myself harder, which was very uncomfortable. A lot of times I didn't like it because I know the cost when you push your body like that, the body has to recover. But we didn't have a choice, like, because we had such a short period of time. And so we were just going all out. And so that was hard for me because I like to, you like to say, I like to arrive without much pain. But if I was to relate that, most people might be listening to that. Well, they feel the same way. I don't want to go through the pain. I don't want to be pushed because it doesn't feel good. And you might have to pay the piper on that. But sometimes, especially if you're, let's say it's business, and sometimes you're going to have to push. You're going to have to push hard to get the result. You're going to have to do things that are very uncomfortable, or you will never get there, right? We were never going to get there if we had just kind of sauntered over those 4 weeks. Like, I'll push a little bit of the sled. I'll do a little bit of the pool. I wouldn't have known what it was like race day. And so I had to go into the crucible, the fire, over those 4 weeks to know what it felt like to burn. And that gave us a really good gauge. You know what I mean? So, yeah,
And
I don't know if that. Oh, go ahead.
one of the things that I'm receiving too, what you're saying is you burn the ships, you burn the bridges,
Yes,
meaning
had
there
to.
was no going back, right?
Yeah,
So you set the realistic goal, you adapted, you got sick during the
that's right.
training block.
Got sick the week before race day,
Yes.
which was the worst thing that could have happened. I mean, it truly. I mean, the race day, I was still coughing and had congestion. um, and I'm curious. I wonder
So
what
would
would
you
have.
consider that a setback?
I guess technically it is, but for me, that is such is life. Like, this is what we have to deal with, and there's nothing I can do about it. There's no complaining. There's no this isn't fair, or I wish this hadn't happened. Is like, no, this is reality today. What do you do next? No, I don't often. If people do something, I don't hold grudges. It's just not something I can't live with a grudge, because that's swallowing poison and hoping your enemy dies. And so if someone has made a mistake in life, like, let's say it's business or whatever, I don't I don't squeeze them on that, because it doesn't do anything. I'm always, hey, what's next? How do we make sure that never happens again? That's all the only thing I think about is, what did we learn? What can we do going forward? Because this will happen again. We will train hard, and how can I avoid getting sick? Right? Like, is there anything I could do? And so that's how I see that. So it's just a learning experience.
How important is it to have somebody like a support system, a training partner, somebody in your life that you can lean on when you do have setbacks and when you do have failures, versus just doing it all by yourself when you're trying to hit a goal?
Yeah, it's funny is, man, with getting sick, one of my main concerns with that was like, man, I'm going to let Sean down. And that was probably one of the hardest parts. And that's also one of the reasons, if it had just been me and I had gotten sick, I would have highly contemplated, maybe I don't do this because I don't think it's smart. But it wasn't just me. It was letting you down. So I was like, that's not an option. Remember, I told you I was actually, okay, if it's that bad, I have to be smart here. Like, I don't want to, like, put myself in hospital. Not that I would, but what I did was I looked up when is the next race, like, because I want to offer something for letting you down. And I was like, oh, there's one in New York in June. I'm not sure what it was, but it was like, oh, it's New York. It's the only other one in America.
Yeah.
All the other ones were international. And so I was like, that's an option. That was one option. Okay, I'll throw this to Sean because he's going to be so disappointed that we don't race. But luckily, I was good enough to go. It was just the perfect timing to where I could still compete. So, yeah,
So being able
that's
to being able to fall back on that support system is
yeah,
huge,
because
right?
you had really made it feel like you had given me a lot of space, like, hey, you do what is best, man. I really appreciated that, because I know in the past, maybe, I mean, you would even say it like you would have maybe expected, no, we do this. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know, like, you give me a lot of grace, and I was just deeply. It made me want. Here's the thing: you give me a lot of grace, made me want to race. Like, if you'd be
Yeah.
like, no, we're doing this, like, I would have maybe been like, man, I don't want to do that. But look what you
Yep.
did. You gave me the
Yeah.
grace, and I'm like, no, let's show up. And so, yeah, the support system, and the whole time, all the training you brought, all the experience. You're like, hey, expect this. this is what it's going to be like. And, you got me prepared in all the areas as best we could. And you took all your experience, right? Like because you experienced that your first time. This is what happened. So honestly, I used it all. Like I took everything you had said and was like, okay, expect this. And we trained harder in some areas than we needed to, not needed to, but we made it harder in training so that it'd be easier on race day. And I love that because that's my kind of training, like that's you work up to, of course, but when it comes to race day, you want to be like feel superior than what what you expected in training, so you did all that for us. That was huge.
When we were doing the exercises at Silverback and going through the exercises, one of the things that was important that I knew in the back of my mind for us to have an opportunity to hit that goal, right, was that we had to maintain our pace on the running. So 60% of Hyrox is running. So one of the things that we'd worked on the 8 exercises that taxed your legs was the sled push, sled pull.
Yeah.
So we originally started off as 50-50, right? Well, we found out really quickly that coming off the sled pull, sled push at 50-50, you weren't able to keep the pace.
Cannot keep that pace.
So we immediately adjusted, right? But how important does this align with our lives in our different areas, in our businesses, in our finances, is that you have to adapt, right? And you have to evolve quickly, because if not, then it's a hamster wheel. Then you're spinning wheels. So automatically, when we knew you couldn't come off that sled push and keep that same pace, I said, hey, we're doing 50-50. Let's adjust it to 70-30, right? So 70-30. And there's 2 things to this. One, not only did we evolve and adjust, but also it was a who, right? And so because you were coming off this and you knew you were hitting this, but I was able to make up that difference in that percentage to help you out, right? And so I think it's so powerful when we're setting realistic goals. My point here is we can't always obtain those goals by ourselves in these different areas of life: spirituality, finances, health and wellness, right? Business goals, finance goals. You want $100,000 in the bank. You want crypto. We don't have all the answers. You didn't have all the answers, right? And you were able to lean on me to cover that difference, a resource, a who. So I think when we're setting goals, not only are they realistic, you're going to adapt, you're going to adjust, you're going to evolve, you're going to learn from your setbacks, like everything that we're saying, and we're going to strategize. But more importantly is, who can you lean on? Who can you reach out to help with that goal? Because you don't have all the answers.
I think it's important to think too, like, what if I had said, no, man, I'm doing 50-50. Even though I wasn't ready, I was just stubborn. Like, I'm not listening. I'm not going to pay attention to what you're saying. I signed up. This is my life. Let's do 50-50. What would our time have been, dude? It would have been plus 70.
100%. It would have been 10, 15 minutes off at least. We would have probably, you would have blown up. You would have ended up walking. And how many people did you pass that were walking that you said, these guys were swole, ripped, 8-packs, right? Looked like they would crush sub 60, but they ended up walking within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. That's right. Because they didn't
game plan. They didn't scrutinize. They didn't, which is funny because knowing us now, like, that's just straight, like, it's just normal. Like, it was like, that's, in fact, that's a lot of what did you enjoy the breaking down? Like, hey, the planning it out, like, for race day, like, because we honed in on the percentages, how did all the feedback from each exercise, each workout session, we kind of dug in. Hey, how was this? What do we need to do? What do we need to tweak? We talked about it, constant open conversation, so that we could really dial in what is it we need to do to be the best we can be on that day. Really enjoyed it. And when I see those guys walking, I'm like, I know they did not do what we did. They didn't have those conversations. Otherwise, they wouldn't be walking right now. They would have known in training, or if they would have known, they would have been able to have broken it down to figure out, if we don't do this, we're going to be walking on race day. And lo and behold, they didn't have that conversation. What happened? They end up walking.
Yeah. I would say one of the number one skill sets, and this goes for setting goals, this goes for setting standards, expectations, this goes for anything in life, right, is communication. If you don't have communication with your partner, with your spouse, with your friend, with your whoever, if you don't communicate, right, I always say over communicate, then you're not setting yourself up to hit that goal, to obtain that goal, right?
And so why do you think people don't communicate? because
That's
it
a good
makes sense.
question.
It's so logical,
Yeah.
right? And I have my thoughts. Like I really feel like I
Why do you?
deeply
Okay,
know
what are your thoughts? Why don't we communicate? Why do people not over communicate? From your
because
experience.
we're afraid to ask for help. Normally communication is I'm not sure what to do. I'm struggling here. The reason we're talking is because I need some form of information that I don't have. And if I don't have something, well, does that mean I'm deficient? Why don't I know? You
Hmm.
might be scrutinized, right? Like in school, if you put your hand up and the question's wrong, like that's a tough situation. Like people learn to eventually not put their hand up to say, hey, I'll give it a shot. Like I'll ask, we'll communicate. Like I have the answer, and if you're wrong, it looks bad. You feel bad. People might laugh at you because you're an idiot, right?
Yeah.
You learn that young. So okay, keep that to yourself. Pretend like you know what's going on, or go do it yourself and take a year to figure out yourself instead of taking six weeks when you go to somebody that already knows, right? Like, so I think that is why people don't want to communicate. They don't want to let the other person down. They don't want to be chastised. They don't want to be punished. Honestly, I think
Yeah.
that's a big part of it. They want to look like they don't have answers because people who have answers are winners. Those are the
Yeah.
people you want in your life. But man, what's so amazing about you is that is it's literally the polar opposite of what we should be doing. Like the moment you don't know, that's the moment you should be texting someone. And that man, can you talk to that? Because no one does it better than you that I know. Like
Yeah. No.
that's what you want. That's what you. If you, people just did that more with you, like that's how you operate. They give you, they let you know what you need to know so that we can keep the ball rolling.
Right. It's so funny you say that because I didn't understand this up until a few years ago, right? And now I'm like, I'm an advocate. I'm a raving fan of over communication. My wife tells me all the time, Kendra, my team members, like they tell me, they're like, "Oh my, Sean, you've said it 10 times already." And I want to say it every direction, right? Every perspective. And the reason I say that is because sometimes it's like laying that mustard seed over and over and over again, right? And so and that's just what a leader does, even with a podcast, even with anything in life. Like I know a little about a lot, right? So I'm going to stick on the three or four, five different things that I know that I dive deep on. But I've learned in business in every area of life, even in my marriage that I'm working on, is like if I don't over communicate, right? Whether it's a text message, audio, whatever it may be, even with my team members, if I don't communicate, even this aligns with Hyrox as well. If we don't communicate that you're tired at 10 burpee broad jumps and you keep doing it, your resting heart rate's at 160 plus, then you blow up right after that burpee broad jump because you just said it, because you didn't want to let me down.
Yep.
Well, then you're doing what's the point? You're doing us a disservice,
It's
right?
it's it's winning the battle and losing the war. Like
Yeah,
to me, I
exactly.
know the ultimate goal for race day was to hit that 60 minutes, and so
Yes,
it might mean it might mean checking your ego. It might mean
yes,
looking weak. It might
yep,
mean looking, and those are all. I don't feel like I looked weak, but that's what could go through. I think maybe in the past that's what might hit my mind. Well, I don't appear like I'm not pulling my weight, but that's what's important. The overall goal. We want to win overall because I'll be most happy if we're close to that time than just looking good right now on this one because there's 8 sections, right? Like, okay, I'm going to do great on this one section. Okay, great. Well, what about the other 7? You blew them all. So
yes.
is it good or not good? Right? Like, it's clearly not good. So yeah, the over communication means that we could succeed on all 8 areas, all 8 sections,
Well,
and
and I
then
think
we get a better
also
result.
too, like you said, it's embracing that vulnerability, right? And so that's one of the things that I have learned that it's been a challenge for me is that sharing my vulnerabilities. Like I tell my team all the time, and I think I've even shared this with you dozens of times behind the scenes, and even Kel, our team members that level up and live. I'm like, look, I suck at this. I struggle with this. I need your help. You know what I mean? And so like I own that.
It's
And
such a rare
so
quality, though. It's so
yeah,
rare,
it is.
and I
But
don't
it's
think
taking.
people. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's once people realize, once they embrace what you're talking about, it is bliss. Honestly, I don't know many people that know it. I only know it because you, like, we worked, like, we have figured, like, you've I'm trying to think of how to say it. I've realized it's not a dangerous place to
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm not sure what's going on here. You're not going to be like, oh, you idiot. Oh,
Yeah.
he's let me down. It's like, okay, great. This is what we need to do next. Or what do we need to do next? What would be some ideas? I'm like,
Yep.
okay, great point. And we just keep moving the ball as opposed to, well, I'm not going to say anything or I don't want to communicate that. And then, well, guess what just happened? You just stalled out time. You stalled getting to the result because you're still working on it yourself. As opposed to if you brought it up at the front, we'd already be past it. And
Yep.
momentum is so huge. I think that's what's so important
Huge.
about what we're talking about
Game
is the
changer.
momentum. Because if you stall
Yes.
momentum, that's a life killer. Like
Yep.
when you have momentum in exercising and momentum in diet, like let's say you go for a month without eating bad stuff, and then you have a burger 3 days in a row, you just stalled your momentum out, right? As opposed to same with relationships or business, like keeping that momentum going is so valuable, and you can only do that if you're constantly communicating. That's what I've picked
Yes.
up. That's what I've
Yep.
realized from our doing that together.
100%, man. And wrap things up, I would say, moving forward with doing these is setting a new goal, right? So even though we set the 60 minutes and then we hit 62:47, even though it was a personal all-time record,
Yeah,
right? We're not concentrating on the outcome, right? We got fourth place out of 72 men. So to us, right, to society, maybe like, oh, well, you didn't podium, but to us, it's like, hey, we set a personal all-time record. We
yeah,
did this, and this, right? And
yes,
so that it's just concentrating on that. And it's like failing forward and then learning from, okay, we didn't hit our 60 minutes, but we hit 62:47. So picking away the goods, right? The bad and the uglies, and then adjusting, evolving, and applying that moving forward. And when you're setting these goals, and that's anything, right? It's like now we know, like, okay, if you ask me, Sean, what's the number one thing? Why didn't you guys hit 60 minutes? Just time. I would say number one is time because you found
100%.
out about this 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
If we would have had another 3 weeks, 60 minutes, I would have put $1,000 on it.
yeah, I
Right.
would have
So
too,
right now it's
man.
just putting in the time, putting in the reps, putting in the volume, and we know that. So now we're doing another training block, 8 to 12 weeks, and we know when we pick that, it's going to be sub 60. It's going to be 100% guaranteed, right?
And a
And
lot of
so it's
people,
setting those new goals and making sure you learn from
yeah,
the stepping stone of not hitting that 60 minutes.
100%, man. And I think um, people don't think past the short term. Think where will we be in 3 years,
Yes.
right? Like we're if we just keep at it, like what the 62:47 might be laughable, like who
Well, you
knows?
and it all comes down to the all consumed, all in,
Yeah.
right? If we were all consumed on the 60 minutes, I don't show up at Silverback this morning and work out with you
Mm.
because I was all consumed. That's all that mattered to me. I just wanted to concentrate on the outcome. So it's the all consumed versus the all in.
Dude, we totally celebrated not hitting the 60-minute mark. Like
Exactly.
I was kind of concerned. I was like how I was interested. I was like, how is Sean going to respond? We didn't get 60. I really thought, is he going to be disappointed? And because I felt like, man, I let him down because I know I couldn't hold that pace. But then you were so excited, and I was like, there it is, and I was just so grateful, man. It was just a wonderful, and we had just gone to war together, man. We and it was just beautiful. We celebrated, man. It was phenomenal. It was such a great experience. Go check the pictures out, the
Yep.
video on Facebook,
Yep.
TikTok, Instagram. They're out there, and man, you can see the joy in our faces, man. Like it was just a awesome time. And I strongly recommend if you think you can't do it, well, neither did I. Like so
Yep.
just start somewhere and go do something like that. Get uncomfortable, and man, just you will feel like a different person afterwards. You'll feel so much more confident, stronger mentally. What else is possible? That's what I come away with. What else is possible in all areas of life? And that's super exciting, right? Like I feel so confident, like great things are happening in all other areas. So I want that for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'll leave our listeners with this. If you're wanting to set a goal and you understand and you hear everything that we're saying, you resonate with everything that you're saying, and if you have any questions or challenge or obstacles when setting realistic goals and some of these things that we talked about today, reach out to us, DM us, direct message us. We're always trying to solicit feedback and receive because this is what helps. This is what fuels us on content and what to provide our listeners and audience moving forward. So we want to provide as much valuable content from our experiences and then preach it and yeah, just inspire others to do the same.
Amen to that. Level up and live, brother.
Level up and live, brother. Wrap for today's episode of the Level Up and Live podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us on this wild ride. Remember, the journey to greatness is filled with ups, downs, and everything in between. Embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories, and always strive to live your best life. If you've enjoyed today's show and want to keep leveling up with us, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so don't hesitate to leave us a positive review. Together, we can continue spreading positive growth, inspiration to all corners of the globe. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, chasing dreams, and living life to the fullest. This is Sean Myers signing off. Stay awesome, level up, and live community.